Awun dwash mayanat qaddash shmach te malkutach nehwi suyanach ikanna dwash maya abbar'a حولا لحمة سنكانا يومنا واش وقلان حوبين إكنا داب حنان شوق الحيوين لا تعنى نسيونا إلا بصا من بيشة مثول دي لاخي ملكوثة حي لو تشبحته العالم عالمين آمين. I love the Lord's Prayer. so many deep things in it that just comes every time I speak it. So last week we spoke about Matthew chapter 24. I'd like to continue that for a while, and then I'm going to jump back to one of the questions we got last week related to Matthew chapter 10, verse 28, about who to fear according to Jesus. I see some questions are coming in. So that's great. Your questions, by the way, can be related to tonight's topic or anything that comes to mind from the Bible or anything related to life that could be helped with Jesus's teachings. So in chapter 24, just in case you weren't with us last week, Jesus is shifting. What I love, the early part of Jesus's message and teachings were very focused on preparing the way for the kingdom and preparing the disciples and the apostles and teaching them how does the dynamics of the kingdom, that the constitution of the kingdom. Plus, we learn about Jesus's personal journey into the unfolding of his ministry. So, but by the time we get to chapter 24, we're coming very close to the end of his life and his ministry. And he's aware of that. He feels like he has done a lot of preparation to help the apostles and disciples and followers navigate and enter the kingdom, actually live with the principles of the kingdom. But he knows that the time is coming, and this happens to us all the time when we, even as grounded as we can be. He knew that there will be times when the faith is going to be questioned, that there will be things that will be hard for us to process if we don't have all the solid ground that the kingdom gives us in our life, that the principles give us in our lives. So here he's shifting into, listen, it's not always going to be peace in the country. It's not always going to be nice and rosy all the time. Things are going, they tend to, historically, they tend to go crazy. Wars happen, turmoil happens, economic situations change, earthquakes happen, natural disaster happens. So he's and we will question that. Our nature as humans is like, okay, if there is this loving God, because Jesus talks about a totally different version of God than the gods that they were seeing or the gods of the other religions. His God is back to the simple God of Abraham, a loving God who is more of a parent figure. He refers to God as the Father, and it's a term of endearment. So he's breaking down the barrier between us and this God, this parent figure, and reestablishing the relationship between us directly. So he's questioning also the temple, similar to the prophets before him. It's like, do we need priests, and do we need a place to go and worship and show our loyalty to that God? Do we need religious centers, or is God with us all the time? So he's shifting all that, and then he's showing us how to live in that space by the rules of the kingdom. Then something could happen that's going to make us question everything. The Bible has the great story of Job. and he was a person of faith. He loved God. He was God's favorite servant, and so forth. And in that story and that book, Job goes through a lot of challenges, and he stays true to God. And by the way, if you're interested in Satan, that's one of the early introductions of Satan in the Bible. But that's not what I want to talk about. But ultimately, and actually, it might be relevant, because what Jesus then starts warning his apostles and disciples about is that when these changes happen, it's going to impact you in different ways. You're going to react in different ways. And he warns them big time in the next few verses about false prophets, false teachers, false leaders, because these kinds of situations will create opportunities for people to jump into leadership positions when there's a void, and start preaching something different than what Jesus was preaching, from within the movement and outside the movement. So it's very important to kind of understand that Jesus's mindset in here, because we're not doing a chapter by chapter and going with the same group every day. We're jumping around. Sometimes I'm doing these lessons. Sometimes Dr. Eric was doing the lessons. So it's important to have this grounding. It's like, if you're jumping in, if this is the first time you listen to us, it might be like, it's like, what are they talking about? So we've talked about the principles of the kingdom many times, and we've talked about the principles of how Jesus manifests these principles, and how they apply to healing, how they apply to the relationships and so forth. And now we're talking about late in his life, he's given us some warnings about when things go bad. And he was predicting a specific event in this case, which could be very easily misinterpreted as an apocalypse, which was not. It was a period of change, and it was a period of turmoil, and it was going to happen fast. And he actually, in one of these verses, he does talk about the fact that it's going to be quickened. It's going to be it's going to be a blessing, that the period of turmoil is going to come quickly. And it's going to affect a lot of people. But if you stay true to the teachings with what he was grounding his apostles with, and allowing the movement to kind of follow those teachings, then you're going to come out of it. Maybe not all of you, because sometimes innocent people do lose their lives during periods of turmoil, but you're going to come out of that, and that the movement will continue. And he continues to predict that his message, he talks a lot about the term of coming back. And coming back is a constant stream in the ministry, and then in the movement later, of the teachings of the kingdom, not Jesus the man, but the spirit of Jesus and the spirit of his teachings will always appear, will always be there with us. And we will feel that presence, and it will give us strength to continue. If you think about it, that when they started preaching the actual return of a physical Jesus, or the physical Jesus Christ, the Mashiach coming back and manifesting physically, any of the schools that do that, and there are a lot of them that do that today, it's like what is lost is like this 2,000 years of Christianity, and people have been waiting for that moment to come. And then, of course, we have the teachings of the resurrection of the dead. So to answer the question, it's like, what if Jesus doesn't show up in my lifetime? Why should I care about this? Well, okay, if you die, then Jesus will raise you from the dead and judge you at the time. So that story has been with us for a long time. It was not Jesus's intent. He was basically saying, I delivered my message. I'm going to leave you physically. I'm going to always be with you spiritually, and you'll always feel my presence when you need me spiritually. and which is the presence of the Spirit, and the Spirit of God is with us all the time. So we should be aware of that. So when he was talking about being the Son of God and so forth, that's a part of that coding of that message, is that we all are spirits, and we all will lose the body at some point, but we always will be in existence. So this is basically the theme of the rest of this chapter. And I'm seeing quite a bit of questions coming in. So I'll try to kind of keep this to about 30 minutes so we can do that and cover the Matthew verses appropriately. So last time we stopped at verse 14, which was very critical. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached throughout the world as a testimony to all the nations when the end will come. See, again, the end will come doesn't mean that the world will end, but the end of that era will come, and always the kingdom will reappear. It never goes away. God's presence is always there. We just need to tune into it. Now, when you see the sign of uncleanliness and desolation as spoken by the prophet Daniel, accumulating in the holy place, whoever reads this will understand. And this is kind of like a quotation. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountain, and he who is on the roof. So he goes through a bunch of verses here. I don't want to read all of them. Basically, he's saying it's going to happen so fast that you know don't hesitate, like run for your life, because when the Roman armies came and destroyed the state of Israel as it was at the time, and they destroyed the temple, it happened so quickly. They were angry that there was a lot of basically boiling in the political minds, and they just gave up. And 2,000 years ago, actually, if you look at today's wars, they're not much different, especially if you look at in the Near East. We hear a lot about beheadings. We hear a lot about hanging, and leaving people hanging for a long time to set an example. We hear about groups trying to wipe out other groups. This is happening now. 2,000 years ago, it was even more brutal, but very, very similar mindset. When they got angry, and they went out, when one nation went after one nation, or one tribe went after one tribe, and they actually defeated them, they tried to wipe them out. They basically killed their young men who were fighting. They killed the old men who could not work and be basically enslaved. They took the young women and basically took them in as slaves, as concubines. And they usually left the old women who could not produce children behind to fend for themselves and eventually die out of hunger, because they would take everything out of the land. So Jesus is talking about that, and he's also talking about when he talks about the holy places. One of the things that we see, when we saw some of this even in recent wars, people tend to go seek refuge during these moments in holy places, in like schools, sometimes in theaters, and think that at least the enemy, when they come, they see us all gathered there peacefully, not fighting, maybe they will spare us. And the thing that happens in those places, it could be the most magnificent opera house, or it could be the most magnificent cathedral or mosque. When you go there and you put the whole town and the whole village in there, very quickly that place becomes very soiled and not that, not have the same glory it had when it was used as a worship place or as an art place. People will need to go to the bathroom. People will be not able to shower. The water will be cut off. Food will get scarce. Some people will die out of disease, out of hunger. And those places become nasty. They would smell nasty. They would not be the great places that we think of. So that was a way of predicting that even the ones who will go and hide in these places, these places that we feel that are very sacred, and when we walk in, we always make sure that we're looking good and clean and wash and so forth before we go in. All that is out the window, especially when an army is moving in quickly on you. So he basically predicts what was going to happen, and as I told you last week, the temple was destroyed. So even the people who hid in the temple, thinking God will protect them or the religion will protect them, the Romans were so angry that they annihilated that, and that happens also in today's wars. I think not too long ago in the Ukraine, if I recall correctly, a whole town, basically all the kids and so forth, went and hid in a theater, and the planes came over and they bombed that theater, and a lot of innocent lives were lost there. So the war mindset is nasty, and we need to get rid of it. Jesus was talking about this. He constantly was hoping that by turning to the kingdom, we would avoid this mindset. We would, if you start loving the Romans instead of fighting with them, you'd break down the Roman Empire and the Roman might by love, not by rebelling and carrying weapons against them. And that by the time this happened, obviously that his movement, the movement of the kingdom, was not strong enough to influence the Roman Empire to say, look, there are a lot of people, just give them a couple more years or 5 more years and see if they went over. There were still a lot of people who were anti-Roman, and eventually it caught up with them. So that's the part. And he gives a lot of examples where people will be like two people will be there working in the field, or 2 women will be grinding wheat, and the movement of the armies and so will be so fast that one will all of a sudden disappear and the other one will be spared, or they'll miss him. Because the idea there again, that this is a fast-moving war, it's a fast-moving army, and they're not in the business of handpicking every person, making sure everybody is wiped out. If they start wiping out the bulk of the society and taking a lot of them into slavery, the society tends to collapse, or other tribes nearby or so forth. As soon as the war is over, they come and they feed on the rest of it. They just take what is left. So that's, again, he talks about vultures and carcasses. So it's a nasty environment that gets created by these wars. And wherever there is a, so this is verse 28, wherever there is a carcass, there will be vultures gather. Immediately after the suffering of those days, the sun will be dark. So he's speaking again, Aramaic, idiomatic, poetic speaking. Will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the universe will be shaken. This is all idiomatic, Aramaic way of describing how miserable the world will seem to the people who are there. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the generations of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with large trumpets. So now he's predicting that, during these very low times, people will start waking up to the message of the kingdom, and it will sound victorious. The people who stayed true to this message will come out and preach. We need peace. We need love. You need to come back, and there is hope. See, again, the message of Jesus was a message full of hope, full of hope for anybody who joins it, full of hope for all of humanity. So he's talking here about how there is, this is not the end, that we will rise again. We'll rise again with the principles that I gave you. And you will hear it, you will feel it, it will be triumphant, and I will be back with you, meaning all my teachings will be back with you. All the things I taught you, all the things I promised you will work for you again, because it overcomes all this anger, all this hate, all this bloodshed. The message of the kingdom wipes all that and gives us also, because remember, he in Matthew, when he's talking about what we call the Beatitudes, he does say the mourners will be comforted. So he has all the people, the peacemakers, the mourners, all the people who he had already preached to and told them, you are going to have a place in the kingdom and you will have joy in the kingdom. This is the time when you will be tested, and then you'll come out on top. You'll come back and you'll inherit the earth, because the owners of the land, the people who fought and were greedy and fought the system and so forth, are going to be gone, and somebody will have to tend to the lands. Even the Romans wanted people to go back to planting wheat and so forth, because that fed Rome, and they paid taxes, and that went back to Rome, and that funded the armies. So under all that anger and all that destruction, life will come back again, and the kingdom will show up again. It never goes away. So, but the people who belong with the kingdom will come back, and the good people of that area will come back. He also he gives an example of Noah, because when Noah and the flood, the story of in the Hebrew Bible, everybody was making fun of Noah, because they were going like, we don't see anything that would tell us that there's going to be a flood. But then when it did happen, it happened quickly. A lot of people lost their lives, and Noah barely was able to kind of run and get in the ark or in his boat. So he's given similar examples, like, just because it feels good right now, when the bad times come, they're gonna come quickly. But then those bad times will pass, just like in Noah's case. Peace will come back, love will come back, and we'll be able to overcome all of it. Okay, so oops, I'm trying to kind of see how far I went here. Okay. And then he talks about something else, which is about the faithful servant. He has a whole bunch of parables about servants and masters. In this case, he talks about the servants who are going to, during this time, be abusive and get away from the instructions of their masters. In this case, he's talking about, again, the followers and the keepers of the kingdom message, and if they stay true to it, they'll be rewarded. And the ones who veer away from it and become more abusive or join the struggle that's taking place in the land, then they will be punished. They will be suffering. And it's a great segue, because I'm almost at that half hour, to talking about that punishment. I don't know if I want to stop and start again. I probably will do my own editing later. So the chapter ends kind of, and he will severely scourge him and give him a portion. This is again the master and the servant. A portion like that of the hypocrites, there will be weeping and gnashing of the teeth. So people who even survive the war itself, but behave badly during that time, they will get their own punishment. They will not come out okay. That said, the kingdom does have the keys to actually atone and do your forgiveness work and so forth to get back into the fold of the kingdom. So but it's a warning. It's like, why go there and then have to come back? Jesus is very strong here. It's like, do not get away from what I'm teaching you. Stay true to it. Watch out for false teachers, because when the peace comes back, you don't want to be in that hell torment. Again, we know that God doesn't punish. We punish ourselves, and society sometimes punishes us. So always do the right thing, because that's what saves you in the end all the time. Okay, and I think that does the chapter. I think I covered